Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Real Science Exchange, the pubcast where leading scientists and industry professionals meet over a few drinks to discuss the latest ideas and trends in animal nutrition. Hi, I'm Scott Sorrell. I work for Balchem Corporation. I'm the Director of Global Marketing, and I'm going to be your host here tonight. We've got Rankovic, Dr. Alex Rankovic from University of Guelph, and she's going to give a presentation later today called Sustainability and Nutrition Considerations for Supplementing Omega-3s in Companion Animal Diets. Now, Alex, before we get started in diving into your presentation, what I'd like to do is just kind of ask you to give a bit of background about yourself. What do people need to know about Alex? And also, then I want you to tell us a little bit about, I know you have 5 pets, but...
I won't take up too much time, yeah.
But tell us about your pets, yeah.
Yeah, of course, I'd love to. Thank you for the lovely introduction. So as was mentioned, I am from the University of Guelph. I work there as a research associate and a lecturer. So I did all my degrees at Guelph. Started with the Bachelor of Science. And at that time, I have a horse, which I'll get into later, which is very expensive. I wouldn't recommend when you're a university student, but I had to work part-time to pay for said horse. And I ended up working at a pet store that sold a lot of pet food. And at the time, I realized not only how expansive the industry was, but how invested people were in what they were feeding their pets. And I got so interested, fell in love with it. And thankfully at Guelph, we do have a pet nutrition course that I took in my 3rd year, and everything just kind of fell into place. Yes, it was with Dr. Adroni Verbruga. So then I did my master's with her, looking at different starch sources in commercial dog food and how they affected insulin, glucose, and satiety. And then I stuck around for a PhD looking at the effects of choline in overweight and fat cats, specifically related to fat metabolism. And so that was very generously, all my products were donated by Balchem. So that was lovely. And then had the opportunity to do a postdoc with Dr. Anna Kate Shoveler at the University of Guelph. So I stuck around and did that, worked a little bit as an equine nutritionist between the PhD and the postdoc, but I missed research. So I came back, and now I'm still there teaching others and working on research. So I think that's mostly my background. And yeah, I've got 5 pets at home. I do have a horse. Her name is Fancy Nancy, and I do dressage with her. And then I also
had her for quite a while then.
So this is a different horse now.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that horse did pass away. And then really intelligently, at the end of my PhD, I got a bunch of scholarships. And so I was like, oh, this is silly. Like, would have been nice to have those scholarships during the PhD. I decided to spend all that money on a new horse. So that was my gift to myself. So I have her. I have a rabbit. He's free range, boss of the house.
So free range of the house, not necessarily outside.
Yes, yeah. He's in the house, can do whatever he wants, litter box trained, bosses the other pets around. We have a dog as well, Havanese, and then we have 2 cats. One, which was a research cat at the University of Guelph, and I took him home. And we just recently adopted a kitten about 2 months ago, and it's been a lot.
Yes, that is a lot.
Yeah, but he fits in very well, and we love him. It's just a lot of digging in the soil and the plants, lots of plants that have fallen over, lots of leaves that have gone missing. So it's chaos, but it's good chaos.
Yeah, for sure. Myself, I've got 2 pets. I'm down to 2 now.
Oh,
but
so
we've
you
got,
need more. You
yeah,
need at least
I know.
3 more.
Well, the kids are out of the house now, and so these are certainly fur babies.
Yeah.
But we've got 2 border collies. I've had border
they're
collies
lovely.
since I was an infant. We had a border collie named Butch, and so I've had border collies ever since.
My husband had one, and the intention was that he was supposed to herd the cattle on the farm, but he was afraid of the cattle, so he just rode around in the tractor with them. So
Well, that's what they're good for. They're amazing. Yeah, great. Well, thank you for that.
Of course.
My co-host today is Jim Lamancusa. He's the CEO of the Pet Sustainability Coalition. Jim, kind of the same curricula here. Why don't you just start off, tell me a little bit about yourself, and then tell me about your pets.
Sure. So, Jim Lamancusa, I'm the CEO of the Pet Sustainability Coalition. I came here through a very different route than I think a lot of people ended up with sustainability. So I have been in for-profit companies for the past 25 years, the outdoor industry, natural foods, and now in the pet industry. And I also own my own tea and coffee brand for the past 8 years. And when I sold that, I was looking for, what is my next thing to do in my career? And I really wanted to get back to the planet, that we do have major issues that are facing our globe. And It's debatable in certain circles whether it's human caused or nature caused, but one way or another, it's obvious that the world is changing, and that's causing a lot of uncertainty and risk in the business community. And so our board of directors was looking to hire somebody that has that experience, because the Pet Sustainability Coalition has 200 members just in the pet industry. It's across the entire supply chain. So from distributors to retailers, manufacturers, brands, ingredient suppliers, packaging suppliers, service providers. So we really have the whole breadth of the industry as members. And essentially what we do is help individual companies advance their sustainability goals. I often like to explain that we are like your outsourced sustainability team. So you don't have to hire a full-time sustainability team, that you can work with PSC for a fraction of the cost. And we have a whole team of experts that can advance things like greenhouse gas accounting, supply chain code of conduct, looking for more innovative ingredients or packaging solutions. So really, each company's journey is slightly different. Sustainability is a huge umbrella that can affect different areas across each company. And so we work with companies to say, what are your goals? How can we help you achieve them? Let's create a roadmap to doing that. And we also bring together the entire industry on issues that are too big for one company to solve on their own. And so our board of directors was looking for somebody that has been in the seat of where our members are. So I've run companies that are for profit. Sustainability is challenging because there has to be a return on investment, that you can't help the planet if you don't stay in business. And so we often look for, where is that low-hanging fruit where you can save money and do better for the planet, and then again create that roadmap to becoming better and better. It's always progress over perfection. You'll never get to the summit, you're never finished, but you can take steps forward one step at a time. As far as personally, I am in between pets right now, which is probably a really good thing, because I didn't realize how much travel was involved with this job. I'm on the road constantly, and with conventions like this, and so it's great to be able to meet our members face to face. I do have 13 nieces and nephews, and they all have pets, and so I get to be a great uncle to them as well as an uncle to all of their pets. And then personally, I live in Colorado. I'm a big backcountry skier, ice climber. I spend a lot of time in the outdoors, and it really drives me to want to protect the places that we love and we recreate in.
Yeah, good for you. One of the things you were talking about, it sounds to me, if I heard you correctly, a lot of the sustainability is related to the supply chain and not necessarily the animal itself. My paradigm is I come from production animal agriculture, and we're looking to reduce the carbon footprint of the animal itself. And so that sounds like it's a little bit different than what you're involved with. Would that be a fair statement?
It is. I mean, we try to go throughout the whole supply chain. So we do have members that are upstream working with the animals themselves to reduce methane production. For example, in cows, there's a lot of great feed additives that are healthy for the animal and can reduce the belching of cows of methane, and that can help reduce climate change. But a lot of the work that we do is downstream as well, of the processed ingredients. What are you putting in the bag? There's a really dangerous trend right now in the pet industry for human grade food for pets, and it's the worst thing that we can do for the environment, because these animals are grown for human food, and then there's the other half of the animal that needs to go somewhere, should go somewhere. If we're going to raise the animal and slaughter the animal, we should use the whole thing. And when we start competing with the human supply chain and not using the other half of the animal, essentially it doubles the environmental cost of growing that animal. Not to mention the fact that the other half of the animal is extremely nutritious for pets. And frankly, humans should be eating more organs as well, but we don't.
Right.
But it's extremely nutritious for the pets, and it's a perfect complement to the human supply chain, because pets will use the other half of the animal. So it's things like that that we're working to educate. All of our recommendations are data backed to make sure that it's not just a pie in the sky, let's save Mother Earth type stuff. It's actually, these things will benefit your business. And also, like, the other half of the animal is less expensive.
Yeah.
So,
Boy, Jim, I think we could have a whole podcast on this topic, but we invited Alex here as
That's
our
okay.
invited guest.
I'm sure we'll kind of have some conversations around sustainability,
excited.
especially with oils and fat sources, because I feel like maybe, at least in my experience, I feel like there's a lot of conversation about protein and protein sources, but maybe not so much on how we can provide some of these fatty acids in a more sustainable way.
Great.
So I think we'll get back to it.
Yeah, great point. So why don't you talk about that? So you're giving a presentation here at the Petfood Forum.
Yes.
On sustainability and omega-3 fatty acids. Now, I'm fascinated to hear all about that. So kind of give us what the high points your presentation is going to be about. Balchem's known as a choline manufacturer, but what people may not know is that we also have a choline product made specifically for pet food manufacturers. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Sure. So we have a PetSure branded premium choline chloride product is on a non-grain, non-GMO carrier to meet the customer needs that want something that is more cleaner for non-grain products. It's manufactured in our state-of-the-art US-based facilities. There's rigorous quality standards, including a fully APCO compliant SQF, FAMIQF, and the AFIA Safe Feed, Safe Food certifications. And Balchem ensures transparency in all that we do throughout regular audits with our qualified clients.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, of course. I'd love to. So there's sort of three learning objectives that I've outlined with this presentation. The first will be just kind of bringing everyone up to speed on how do animals metabolize these fatty acids. So when we talk about dogs versus cats, it is a little bit different because dogs are able to use the fatty acids that we find in plant sources, so the N6-LA and the N3-ALA, and convert it into these longer chain fatty acids like EPA, DHA when we're talking about our N3s, and arachidonic acid, AA, when we're talking about N6s. And both of these produce those signaling molecules, which give us, anti-inflammatory and inflammatory effects. Whereas cats don't have quite that same ability, so we do need to provide them with fats that are found in animal sources. So cats being historically carnivores, they've kind of relied on eating animals that already did this conversion, and so they don't have to do the conversion, right? They eat a mouse or something that's converted the fatty acid found in plants to the longer chain one, and they're good to go. So there is some kind of conversations about that and how that sort of dictates the recommendations that
Let
we
me
have.
ask real quick,
Yeah,
why
of
are
course.
dogs different than cats? How'd that happen? Because they're carnivores as well, is that right?
So dogs have evolved to be more omnivores. So when we look at even like dogs versus wolves, there is some differences there in terms of their genetics when it comes to starch digestion. So as they've kind of sort of evolved next to us and kind of evolved eating some of our waste and the things that they've had access to as they've evolved with us, next to us as our companions, they have more capacity to consume more plant-based products. So a lot of the different requirements that we have with cats are related to kind of their carnivorous nature and the fact that they just don't have some of this ability to produce certain nutrients on their own because the animals that they eat do that for them. So it's not just the fatty acids, there are a couple other ones as well. Amino acids being a big one. We always talk about taurine when it comes to cats and how they have that recommendation, whereas dogs don't. But it comes down to fatty acids too, and they have that extra requirement for arachidonic acid, whereas we don't see that to the same effect in dogs. So kind of starts there, bring everyone up to speed, and then talking about current research, where the recommendations are. We always talk about fish oil, right? And providing EPA and DHA, and we always talk about those health benefits. But really, the recommendations are that, yes, there is a need for DHA specifically with growing animals to develop the brain and retinas, but we don't see that in adult animals. And so it kind of leads to the next part, whereas, do we provide fish oils just because we can? When we talk about sustainability, it's not sustainable. We know that since the 60s, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, like the amount of marine products that we've consumed has been, I think, 6 times greater than the human population. No.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. 6 times greater than the human population since the 60s. And that's not even talking about our companion animals now. So if we're having a hard time meeting the EPA, the DHA requirements, and providing enough fish and fish oil to people, can we continue down this path of just putting fish oil and EPA and DHA in excessive amounts when the research doesn't suggest that? And so, algae oil is now one that's being considered more in the pet industry and in humans as well, as being a more sustainable source of these long chain omega-3s, EPA and DHA, because that's how fish actually derive those N3s, is they consume algae and then they have that in their tissues. And the production of algae is more controlled, it's more sustainable than harvesting fish and then getting oil from them.
So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Why is that not sustainable? Just for the audience, kind of bring us up to speed on why.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
So there's a lot of different, I guess, considerations when it comes to using fish and fish oil. There's the environmental kind of discussion where we know that overfishing and kind of commercial fishing practices do harm marine life. They can disrupt ecosystems. We also know that the working conditions of some of these employees that are working on these fishing boats are not great. There's questions about what their work life is like, what the labor laws are like, long wages or long hours, low wages, hazardous working conditions. So that's another piece of that as well. And just where we're deriving these fish stocks from as well, it's not as controlled as our algae production is. So there's a lot of different pieces to it that have sort of led to this increased discussion and utilization of algae. But with that being said too, and now I'm kind of getting into the last part of the presentation, we recently did some research at the University of Guelph where we did kind of an extreme shelf life study where we had kibble and we enrobed it in 10% of these different oils and fats with different levels of saturation in regards to the fatty acids. And we found that the algae oil performed really poorly, like the treatment when we enrobed it, that the shelf life of it was not great. It oxidized the most. And so now there's this conversation of, yes, we need to look at nutrient profile, we need to look at sustainability, but we also need to consider the oxidative stability of these products because we can't feed oxidized oils to our pets because that's also going to harm them as well. And so then the conversation comes back to, well, we know that dogs can use these N3s that are found in plants like flaxseed and camelina and convert them. We also know that
You're
there
talking
is
linolenic
alpha
acid?
linolenic, yes,
Alpha-linolenic,
yeah,
yep.
ALA. We know dogs can convert them. We know that there isn't a set requirement in adulthood for EPA and DHA. So it just comes back to sort of revisiting the whole picture and reconsidering really how we're supplying these N3s and how much we're giving them. And yeah, just making sure that we're not harming the environment, harming our pets, and that we're continuing to formulate in a way that meets all of those different considerations.
Yeah, boy, there's a lot there.
Yeah, sorry, I feel like I spoke forever.
No, that's great. I do want to, before I forget it, because I am forgetful, but you talk about the oxidation of these fatty
Yes,
acids,
yeah.
and I am very aware of that, going back to some work I've done with another company. But so Balchem is in the microencapsulation
Yes.
business. So maybe think about maybe another trial where you enrobe it with some other fatty acids to protect
Yes, yeah.
protect the omega-3s.
And
So-
I will just say as a note, like that is very extreme. Normally you don't enrobe kibble in 10% oils and fats. And we added the same amount of antioxidant the same amount and the same type to all of our oils and fats, which normally you wouldn't do either, but it just kind of allowed us to control for that additional variable. So it's just about being proactive. If you're going to use algae oil, it doesn't mean you can't. Just be proactive about the antioxidants that you're using. Talk to antioxidant experts. I know there's a whole bunch here today, and just be aware of some of these considerations when you're picking your oil, right? There's no magic oil or fat source, but it is about formulating with intention.
Yeah. One question I had is, so in human nutrition, seed oils are very negative, right, today. Is the same true in the pet food nutrition industry?
Or you're talking about
like soybean oil, corn oils, the high linoleic.
Right. Yeah, so it's we know that N6s do have a really important role. So we definitely don't want to not feed them. They're really important for innate immune system. They're really important for wound healing. So we definitely do need them.
I was thinking more of the polyunsaturated ones because we find benefit in large animal production for the oleic.
Yeah, the N6 you're talking about, or?
So I'm not exactly sure the nomenclature with
Yeah.
N6. It's got polyunsaturated. I think it's got one carbon and one double bond. The
Okay,
oleic.
because we have the linoleic, which is our N6, and alpha linolenic, which is the N3. And so you have soybean would be higher in the N6, and then you've got like your flaxseed and your camelina oils, which are higher in the N3. So the different seeds do sort of have different fatty acid profiles, and it's about sort of that balance between the two of them. There is a maximum amount of N6s as compared to N3s that AFCO has outlined for dogs, not in cats. But to my knowledge, I don't think I've seen, I mean, we don't really do studies like that anymore where we give them such a high amount of one and not the other, just because we are trying to, make sure that we're not harming animals when we do research with them. But it's not really, there's no harm in feeding them, absolutely not. And there is harm in feeding excess N3s. We know that for sure. And so it's just about the balance between the two of them. And if you have an animal that does have a chronic inflammatory condition like arthritis, then increasing those N3s is warranted just because they do have that anti-inflammatory effect. So it depends really on the animal and what your formula is striving for when it comes to this ratio. So for healthy animals, a ratio of N6s to N3s between 5:1 and 10:1 seems to be beneficial. But for animals that do have a chronic inflammatory condition like arthritis or dermatitis, then there is some research supporting going below that ratio of 5:1 for those animals.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Jim, sorry, I'm taking over here. I'm going to turn it over to my co-host.
It's great. Happy. No, it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, so the things that you're talking about really resonate with us as well, and especially from a sustainability
Yep.
perspective. We have a software, it's called How Good, which is the
Okay.
world's largest ingredient database for sustainability,
Perfect. Yeah.
which measures ingredients across 10 different criteria. So
Wow.
like land use, carbon emissions, water use, both upstream, downstream, employee welfare, and it gives each ingredient a score. And then that helps us educate our members that if, looking at their formulations, if they're trying to choose between a fish oil
Yep.
or an algae oil, you can literally see in the scores that the algae oil ranks significantly better primarily because algae is a carbon sink. It removes carbon from
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
the environment where fish don't do that.
Yep.
And so, as well as processing. So processing algae oil to get those omega-3s and fatty acids are much better than the fish. So it's great to have a data-based approach when you're making recommendations to members.
Yeah, I love that. And can you, like, if you're doing formulation, is it kind of tied into a formulation
It is.
software?
Yeah,
Okay,
so
I love
you can basically use it two ways. You can look at an individual ingredient,
Yep.
and then you can build a formulation and say, if we move this percentage from 2 to 4%,
How does
here's
that affect?
here's the total carbon emission effect of that
I
entire
love that.
product.
Yeah,
it
that's great.
includes the like logistics, transportation, packaging, so you get like a full, essentially like a working LCA
Yep.
for that ingredient formulation.
Perfect. I love that. And I will say, too, one other thing is we have talked about environment and sustainability a lot, but we actually did some research at Guelph, too, where we had 27 client-owned dogs, and we fed them different doses of EPA and DHA for 8 weeks. And the dogs, again, healthy dogs that received the highest amount of EPA and DHA for those 8 weeks, there was no difference in those cytokines, those inflammatory signaling molecules, because these were, again, healthy dogs. They didn't have a chronic inflammatory condition. So we didn't see any benefit there. But what we did see was there was lower levels of alpha tocopherols in the high dose groups. So we now have this conversation of, are we taking healthy animals, giving them these high unnecessary doses of EPA and DHA, and actually causing antioxidant depletion and increasing their risk of oxidative stress? So I think there's a lot of layers. It's environmental sustainability, but it's also the health of the animal too, when it comes to just feeding excess fish oils and EPA and DHA because we can. And sometimes we think, well, a little bit of one thing must be good, so a lot must be even better, right? And that's not the case. Yeah, more isn't more.
Yeah, many times it's very much negative, right? Yeah, absolutely. Jim, you and I were talking beforehand about how consumers are making decisions about sustainability. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So in the research that multiple groups have done, including Euromonitor and Mintel, a lot of consumer-facing research, when you ask a pet parent, how do you rank the choices when you're buying pet food and pet products? The health of the animal is always number one, and it should always stay number one. Number two is sustainability. And 87% of customers will pay more for a product because it has sustainability. It's marketed as sustainable. Now, we can get into a little bit of a rabbit hole when it comes to greenwashing and is it actually better for the environment or is it just marketed as sustainable? But there's an interesting, or not interesting, there's an university called the Stern School, New York University Stern School of Business, that does an annual report on sustainable products. And they look at conventionally marketed versus sustainably marketed. Sustainably marketed products have grown twice the rate of conventionally marketed products over the past 10 years. So brands that do invest in more sustainable ingredients and packaging and then market it well will see a faster growth. And so again, when we go back to that return on investment, a lot of times it will cost more if you're going to buy organic, regenerative agriculture ingredients, higher grade ingredients, or better packaging, recyclable, compostable packaging, but you see that return on investment from increased customer loyalty and a higher price point typically. But there's also a difference between, you can't be double the price. So there is a range depending on the type of consumer, and that price range usually is anywhere between 4 and 15% that you can charge in addition to a conventionally marketed product. Above that, consumers, they say that they might buy it, but they don't vote with their dollars. So you still have to be targeted with the initiatives that you want to do, and then continue to build that roadmap for what do you do next to continue to educate the consumer and gain more loyalty.
Yeah. So what does that adoption curve look like? When did it start?
Yep.
And is it accelerating? Is it kind of a hockey stick, or are we kind of leveling out?
We're definitely not leveling out. The growth has maintained pretty consistent. So over the past 25 years, we have seen this just consistent year-over-year growth. So now sustainably marketed products represent about 30% of all products on shelf. So that's still 70% that are not sustainably marketed, but that's grown from around 4% of products 30 years ago. So it continually grows and grows because that's what the consumers are looking for.
Yeah, interesting. Alex, give me an idea of, so you've been doing some research. What does the future research look like? What are some unanswered questions that you need to get at?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So when we talk about, especially with the N3s, we often talk about ALA, so alpha-linolenic acid that's found in flaxseed camelina, and then we talk about our marine-derived longer chain N3s, EPA and DHA found in algae and fish oil. But there are some sources, plant sources, that have this other type of fatty acid called SDA in it, and it's an N3. And so there's been some more research in regards to humans and rodents on, well, if you give that, which is kind of a little lower down in the chain of elongation, we have ALA at the very start and EPA, DHA kind of at the bottom. It's sort of between those. And so there's research in humans and rodents looking at, well, if we feed that, do we have an increased conversion to these longer chain fatty acids? And do these fatty acids on their own provide an independent health benefit? And the same thing with ALA. There is research in humans and rodents that on its own, it does provide an independent health benefit. But we don't have those same research in dogs and cats. So I think looking more into what are the health benefits of these plant-sourced fatty acids on their own, independent of their conversion, is one thing. And can we look at these other novel seed oils that have this SDA, and does that offer any health benefit to our dogs and our cats? I know there is a product kind of geared towards horses that has it, but I haven't seen it yet, kind of geared towards dogs and cats. And I also don't know what the supply of these ingredients is like either, and whether that's sustainable. But I think looking more into the health benefits of these plant-sourced fatty acids and really understanding what do they offer our pets beyond this conversion to EPA and DHA, I think would be very beneficial. And also just trying to understand a little bit better if we can really narrow down what that ratio of N6s to N3s should be in our pets. And especially for our adult animals, we know when it's bad, but we don't really know where the best kind of requirement lies, I guess I want to say that. So I think there's a lot that can be done in kind of fine tuning the amounts that we give our animals and understanding the health benefits related to that.
And do you have an idea where the source of these SDAs are? What kinds of oils?
Yeah,
What kinds
so
of
I know
plants?
that, oh my gosh, I'm going to pronounce it incorrectly. I think it's called ahi flower. Does that?
Ahi,
Yeah,
yep,
that one.
that's right.
I think borage seed oil as well. Those are the ones that I'm most familiar with. I know that there are some genetically modified plants as well that do have it, but I don't know how open the pet industry would be to using these genetically modified oils. So I think there needs to be a little bit more around that too. Because if people are looking to have more EPA and DHA in the tissues of their animals and more of these anti-inflammatory signaling molecules, especially for animals that do have chronic inflammatory conditions like arthritis, then maybe these oils that do provide SDA is kind of the middle ground between that. So
Interesting. Any big topics we haven't covered yet related to this subject? Dr. Alton, Balchem's created this brand new product called Structuring and Forming Technologies. Tell me a little bit about that.
This is our PetSure branded technology that helps processors and manufacturers utilize and transform protein in such as organ meats and plant-based proteins into treats and finished products. It is suitable for a wide range of animal-based and plant-based proteins. What it does is helps increase the product durability through the process. It provides consistent texture and the quality while providing processing flexibility and avoiding some CapEx expenditures.
You know, there's been quite a bit of research at Auburn University, and one of the things I was intrigued by is that they were able to take liver, which basically liquefies when you grind it or whatever and process it, and you were able to take this technology and put it back together and create a sellable product. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Sure. So this is a combination of calcium lactate and sodium alginate. Now, as you know, we are experts, and one of our core competency is microencapsulation. So we're able to control this protein cross linkages by microencapsulating the calcium lactate, and then we're able to deliver the cross linkages at the specific time in the processing. What we have found is we can start using more of these traditionally hard to handle protein materials such as meat slurries, organ meats, plant-based proteins, even
Fish.
fish, insect proteins that really you kind of limited into the amount you can put into a product because you're not able to get a cohesive product at the end.
So, Eric, so it's a great technology. Tell me, have we had any success stories with it?
Sure. So recently, a customer was having issue with excessive breakage in some of their treats, and they wanted to look at this technology and investigate ways of decreasing the waste material or fines or broken pieces in their process and increase a more sellable product. So by leveraging this technology, they were able to decrease the waste, decrease fines, decrease breakage, but end up with a product that has a greater consumer appeal, which then leads to further consumer or customer loyalty and repeat purchases.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric.
I
Well,
don't know.
I think going back to what you were talking about in the beginning, it's really interesting to bring up the formulation. There's the marketing benefits of telling pet parents, oh, this has fatty acids in it, but if
Yes.
the animal doesn't need it,
Yes.
then it's a huge detriment to
Yep.
sustainability
Yeah,
and the
absolutely.
planet
And
as
to the
well as to the
animal
pet.
potentially too, right?
Right.
Yeah, because especially if you are feeding something that, I think the conversation needs to be too around if we are feeding or formulating with a large amount of N3s, do we need to have conversations with pet owners around, hey, this is how you should be storing your food, right? Because if it's going to be at an increased risk of oxidizing, well, that's not good for the animal. Or do we formulate with lower N3s and then talk to pet owners about supplementing additional on top of that, keeping those oils in their fridge, and kind of doing it on an as-need basis versus just formulating these diets that have very large amounts of EPA, DHA where they're not necessary for the entire population. I don't know if that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it does
Yeah.
answer it. I mean, the we also see an issue similarly to the over protein
Yes. Yep.
content
Yep.
of pet food.
Absolutely.
That pets don't need as much as we're putting into it, which if you look at the environmental footprint of all pet food, the protein source typically has the largest footprint. And so if you go from a 90% protein ingredient to a 75% protein, which is still extremely healthy and it's within range for the nutritional profile for the pet, then there's a big environmental savings, emissions savings. And then it, as well as if you're putting in things that the pet doesn't need on top of it for a marketing purpose, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's that whole conversation of, like more is more is sometimes how we tend to formulate. And I don't want to generalize everyone, but I think it's also about pet owner education too, right? Like if you're a pet owner and you're reading a label and you're going, oh, fish oil, like that's awesome.
I take
but
that.
even more fish oil is even better, right? Like, so I think we need to start at the bottom and start at the top. Start with formulation, but also start with educating pet owners as well and telling them what to look for. Because if they don't know, like that's not their fault, right? So.
Yeah, that sounds like you guys are kind of excoriating marketing people in IR one.
Oh, that's not our intention. We're just giving them stuff to think about.
I do think, though, marketing people do get ahead of themselves sometimes, and that's where a lot of consumers get their information.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm... where would be a great source of nutritional information for consumers to go? Do you guys have any thoughts or opinions on that?
I'm going to do a quick plug for myself here. I'm a host on the Pet Food Science podcast. So it's myself and, 4 others, all of them being either, I think they're all university professors. I might be wrong about that. But that's a really great source. I don't know if you've been there, but someone from the Pet Sustainability.
Our Director of Sustainability Innovation.
Yeah, I listened to that one and it was really, really good. So I just do the horse ones, so I don't do the dog and the cat ones. I have been on there as a guest. But that's a really, really great source of information because, you don't have to listen to all of them. If there's certain ones that you're more interested in, skip over the others, take a listen. And they're all about 30 to 45 minutes. They should be. Sometimes we have guests who are very chatty and they end up being over an hour, but they're intended to be about 30 to 45 minutes long. And, listen to it while you're on your way to work. Watch it on YouTube if you want. So I think that's a great place.
Yes.
And it's all experts talking about their work and the fields that they work in. So.
And what platforms can that be found on? Most of
I think it's on, the actual videos are on YouTube, but Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen to your podcasts,
and that
you
was
can
a
find
Pet
it.
Food Science podcast.
Yes, it was.
That's awesome. And how often does that come out?
I think it comes out. That's a great question. This is terrible. I should know. I know the horse ones come out every 6 weeks because those are mine. I think they come out at least every 2 weeks, if not more, but I think it's every 2 weeks.
Great. Certainly. I'll put it on my listening list.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I don't know if you had any to
your
plug.
local vet is the things that or the place that I would recommend most customers and pet parents get their information on nutrition.
Yeah.
Because the vets are going to know things like, well, you probably shouldn't be giving, fish oil to your older dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Anything else, Jim, we need to cover?
I don't think so. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this
has
is
been
great.
fantastic.
Next time, we'll need alcohol and
Yeah.
Instead of coffee.
coffee.
So I don't think I mentioned that, but usually what we do here, we say that the Real Science Exchange takes place in a virtual pub with real drinks, and so in all transparency, it is 9 o'clock in the morning here. Even though it always is happy hour here at the Real Science Exchange, we did offer coffee today, and so next time we'll make sure that
Next time espresso martinis, you kind of get the little
uppers
mix
and
of
downers.
both.
I love it.
Yeah. Now, this has been an awesome conversation. I have a feeling we could go on all morning, but I appreciate you guys joining me. This
thank you
has
so much
been,
for
very
having us.
interesting. I learned a lot, believe it or not. Got a lot more to learn, but thank you guys for joining
Of course.
us.
Thank you.
To our loyal audience out there, thank you again for coming along on us on this journey. We hope you learned something. We hope you had some fun, and we hope to see you next time here at the Real Science Exchange, where it's always happy hour and you're always among friends.
We'd love to hear your comments or ideas for topics and guests, so please reach out via email to anh.marketing@balchem.com with any suggestions, and we'll work hard to add them to the schedule. Don't forget to leave a 5-star rating on your way out. You can request your Real Science Exchange t-shirt in just a few easy steps. Just like or subscribe to the Real Science Exchange and send us a screenshot along with your address and t-shirt size to anh.marketing@balchem.com. Balchem's Real Science lecture series of webinars continues with ruminant-focused topics on the first Tuesday of every month, monogastric-focused topics on the second Tuesday of each month, and quarterly topics for the companion animal segment. Visit balchem.com/realscience to see the latest schedule and to register for upcoming webinars.